So here in week 3 of our Serve series, we're continuing to focus on the why behind serving. Because our primary responsibility is to love and to serve all people, but if we don't understand the heart behind it, then really our service to the kingdom is going to be limited and may end up phasing out after a while if it's not continued to be rooted in our faith. And that's what James is communicating in chapter 2, verses 14 through 26. He's trying to show and to communicate how the relationship between faith in God and serving other people actually is one and the same and connected. Because oftentimes, faith and deed, as he puts it, or action, is actually communicated separately from one another, as if you both have to enhance your faith and enhance the way that you serve. But James is actually showing here that deeds, which is actionable godly service, is not just something that you just choose to start doing, but it's actually a reflection of one's faith or lack thereof in Jesus. And in this section, James really gives a few examples to illustrate this point. First, he gives a hypothetical example, saying what good is it if somebody is hungry or needs clothes, and all we do is go by and say, hey, peace to you, be warm and well fed. This is very equivalent to us saying to someone who we see today that might have a need, hey, man, I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm going to pray for you. And if we have the ability to meet a need that they have and just walk away and leave that empty, James says this is completely irrelevant to what it looks like to really serve the kingdom of God, to serve people around us with the agape love of God. And this is when he actually continues to write that faith without action is dead. That faith actually should overflow into action. And so as he continues to write, he calls out a hypothetical person here. He says, so you believe that there is only one God. He said, that's a great thing. There's another group of people who believe this, and we call them demons, right? They are of the darkness, and their response might even be more adequate than your response because they shudder, because they know the power of God. That is the overflow of how they fear God, meaning that mere belief in God is not the fullness of faith. He's reiterating and illustrating this over and over again, but belief in God that yields actionable service to others is genuine faith. Belief to the point of basing one's life on it is that you're fully buying into it. You're not just seeking to understand. And James goes on to a couple more examples based out of the Old Testament where Abraham is led by faith to sacrifice his son Isaac. And then, of course, he's saved by an angel and by God at the last minute, proving his faith. You see Rahab the prostitute hiding spies and risking her life for these two men that would be killed if they were found. All of this to say, what James says is that like a body without a spirit is dead, so is faith without action. It's dead. It's not exactly what God intends it to be. There's something more, not that you have to do, but someone who we are called to become that overflows into the action as God leads. And so as we think about applying what James is showing us here in his explanation of service, we can recognize that action is the fruit of a person's faith, but not the faith itself. Right? He's trying to show that actionless faith is actually a meaningless faith. And because actionable service to others is an example of the gospel to them, we have the ability to be able to model and to help people experience the love of God through those actions. And so James was addressing those in the New Testament church whose emphasis was on religion, right? It was strictly just works-based, and never really included serving others as Jesus did, as he quite literally came to model for us. And this should really make us wonder how often we fall into the same category as these people who James is addressing. Whether it's a family member, a church member, or a community member, the big question to ask ourselves is, does our faith show that God cares for the needs of others? Because if we claim to be a believer, yet we choose not to meet the needs of others, does that mean our God chooses to pick and choose what needs to meet and what not to meet? When we also say that he's a God of unconditional love, grace, and mercy. Because if our relationship with Jesus is alive and growing, then the maturity of it can be seen in how, not if, but how we serve and love other people. In other words, actions is not the focal point for James. It's how genuine faith in God is gauged through the action of the believer. And so a few questions to think about and to process this week with the group is first, how does the way that James describes the relationship between faith and action shape your understanding of serving others? And question number 2, in what area in your life do you see that God is calling you to serve others that you haven't acted on yet? What is holding you back? And question number 3, how is God personally refining you in your faith currently? And in what ways do you think your refining leads you to serve others better?